everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. We've got an incredible presentation and discussion prepared. Tonight's event, Breaking the Silence, Spotlighting Non-Speaking Autism in Media, is one of the many produced by the Children's Media Association. If you're unaware, CMA is run entirely by volunteers and is committed to informing, uniting, and supporting spaces within the children's media landscape. If you'd like to shape the future of children's media, consider taking on a leadership role or a support role within CMA. It's important to note that your CMA membership includes many perks: a job board, video library, member discounts, and our phenomenal mentorship program, which is in its 4th year and has just launched. Tonight, our global event coordinator is Yona Devershi, and she's very impassioned and so knowledgeable about non-speaking autism that she is the perfect moderator for tonight's event. Yona?
Thank you, Karen, for that lovely intro, and hello to all of our panelists. So up first, we have Elizabeth Bonker. Elizabeth is the Executive Director of Communication for All, a nonprofit with a mission to gain communication for the estimated 31 million non-speakers with autism worldwide. Elizabeth types to communicate. Her decade of advocacy work includes a book titled I Am In Here, a TED Med Talk, and a music album. In May 2022, Elizabeth's valedictorian commencement address at Rollins College went viral with more than 4 billion media impressions around the world. Elizabeth is also a member of the Autism Society's Council of Advisors. Joining Elizabeth, we have Judy Chinitz. Judy is the founder and director of Mouth to Hand Learning Center. She has been actively involved in the world of non-speaking autism since her son, Alex, was diagnosed in 1996. After seeing what typing for communication could do for her son, Judy established Mouth to Hand, where she currently teaches a thriving community of students. Judy is also a New York State licensed special educator and certified spelling to communicate practitioner, which we'll be learning more about tonight. And then last, but certainly not least, we'd like to welcome Pat Notaro. Pat is a Southern California native with a passion for cinematography, surfing, and skateboarding. He is a graduate of Brooks Institute of Photography and a director and cinematographer who infuses his gritty life experience into his work. He has been recognized with accolades for his work, including his documentary, Spellers, which we'll be spotlighting tonight. Pat is also a humanitarian and environmental advocate who strongly believes in making films to educate. His current efforts to better the planet includes his formation of a nonprofit organization called Flow Surf Academy. Panelists, thank you all for being here tonight. We have got such a great discussion planned, but before we begin, Elizabeth, can you please explain typing to communicate or spelling for anyone who's unfamiliar with it?
You are hearing my words, enabled by text-to-speech technology, because I type to communicate. I use the terms spell and type interchangeably. When I say type, I include the use of stencils, letterboards, and keyboards to communicate. Approximately 40% of people with autism are like me and cannot reliably speak. The process of learning to type for a non-speaker is different because we have difficulty with controlling our bodies, so we need to learn the gross motor movements to point to letters, first on large stencils, then on a letterboard, and finally on a keyboard. The process takes a lot of coaching at first, but the coaching fades with practice to zero. The goal for our communication is autonomy with an iPad or keyboard in a stand. Not all typers may be able to achieve this goal because we have different levels of dysregulation and motor control. The good news is there is now a critical mass of several thousand typers in the world, and a tidal wave is coming with this new Spellers movie. We will no longer be denied our basic human right to communicate. That is our mission at Communication for All, to ensure every non-speaker with autism has access to communication and education.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and well said. And on that note, can you tell us when you started typing to communicate yourself?
Back in 2003, my grandmother saw a courageous woman on 60 Minutes named Soma Mukhopadhyay teaching her own non-speaking son to point to letters to communicate. We were on the next flight to Texas. I was 5 years old. So, I guess you could say I was saved by the media. Today, there are hundreds of practitioners around the world who can teach a non-speaker to type, and one of the best is my friend and partner in the mission, Judy Chinitz. I am so happy to be on this panel with you. Communication for All is supplementing the awesome work done by practitioners by launching C4A Academy, a program of internet-based instructional videos to teach typing to non-speakers without access to a practitioner.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And so I guess just for context, for anyone who isn't familiar, earlier this month, you were also a panelist for the United Nations online event called Transformation Toward a Neuro-Inclusive World for All, which, by the way, you were amazing on. And you also made this really fantastic point about how non-speaking autism needs to be defined as a neuromotor disorder and not a cognitive one by educators and medical professionals alike, which you just alluded to. So on that note, I would like to welcome Judy to the conversation. And Judy, as an educator yourself, can you elaborate upon that by breaking down what dyspraxia is and how it's linked to non-speaking autism?
Yeah, many of us as parents, almost a parent and a practitioner, we're told that our children are dyspraxic or sometimes apraxic. Speech people will tend to use the term apraxia. OTs, PTs tend to use the word dyspraxic, but they're synonyms for each other. And we're kind of told it, but we don't really fully understand what it means necessarily, at least what the implications of it are. Dys means not working. Praxia refers to the system of praxis, which is the volitional motor system, meaning that I'm thinking about doing something and now I'm going to do it. So I tell people to kind of think about what it would be like to learn to play golf or tennis. In the beginning, an instructor will come over, actually do hand over hand, teach you how to put your hands on the golf club. And they'll sort of prompt you through, this is what a swing looks like, or this is what a tennis swing. And over time, of course, they back off. It's a very similar system. That's why Elizabeth, I like the fact that she tends to use, rather than either a therapist or a practitioner, uses the word coach, almost like a motor thing. So what is dyspraxia? It means that the reason that these students appear to not have, quote, language is because they're thinking about what they want to say and they can no longer say it. When I'm giving talks, I frequently will show a picture of my son, Alex, who smiles completely normally until I say to him, Alex, smile. Now he's thinking about smiling and he can no longer do it. Speech is a 100% motor activity, and it is the most complex motor activity that we do. Language is 100% cognition. People know this, but they don't think about it in these terms. But everybody knows, for example, Stephen Hawking for the last 25, 30 years of his life couldn't speak. Did that mean he was cognitively disabled or didn't have language? No. And it's the same thing with these students. They couldn't show us what they know. They can't express themselves verbally because they have, as Elizabeth correctly said, a very severe motor disorder.
Well said. And, I'd be curious, and I'm sure everyone listening tonight would also be curious, Judy, on that note, based on your teaching experiences, can you elaborate upon the challenges that your students often face when they're first learning how to spell or type to communicate?
It's a very frustrating process for them. Some students come in. I have many, many adult students who have spent their entire lives in programs for the profoundly cognitively disabled. Learning has not been fun for them. So a lot of them come in with a very preconceived attitude of, this teacher is telling me that she thinks I'm smart, but she's probably like the rest of them, and she's going to be sitting here and teaching me my letters over and over again. So I face just an attitude problem in the beginning. I face a lot of negativity towards learning. I face many students believing internally they've been so squashed through the course of their lives that there's very little belief in themselves. They have very poor self-image. So on top of all of that, of course, when they're facing is a very, very difficult motor skill to acquire. So the first thing I will tell all my students is, I know already that you are intelligent and that you have language. I know that I have to ask you to spell simple words now. I want you to understand that I already know you know the answer. This is a motor activity. It is not a cognitive activity. And through that, I can, generally speaking, over 3 or 4 sessions of repeating that over and over, please believe me when I tell you that I already know you know the answer. I try to earn their faith in me because I have the fullest faith in them. It always strikes me as interesting that when you watch the movie Spellers, you will hear Dawn Marie say, with every molecule of my being, I know this person's going to talk to me. Absolutely 100%. There's not an atom in my body that doesn't know that the individual in front of me is a highly intelligent person with so much to say. They will talk to me. It's just a question of working through these initial issues that so many of them face. And then when they do talk, it's incredible the difference that we see. I mean, just these people blossom. It is the most fulfilling, the most wonderful thing I've ever done in my life. I have the greatest job in the world.
Well, Judy, I'm sure, and I do not hesitate to say this. I know your students feel similarly. And, I think that is the fundamental of, being a good teacher is believing in your students and giving them that faith to believe in themselves as well. So just off the record, thank you for doing that. And thank you for really taking your time, to build up these students. Because again, to your point, they have just been belittled all their lives and they've been spoken over. So it's really impactful now that, educators like yourself and coaches like yourself are now able to elevate these voices and amplify these voices. And I think this is actually now the perfect time for us to transition into the topic of autistic representation. So overall, we are seeing a good amount of it in media as of late. There are shows like The Proud Family and Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood that comes to mind. They've had episodes about autism. Another show that comes to mind is Netflix's Love on the Spectrum. And then the novel turned show A Kind of Spark is already being praised for its portrayal of autistic women. That being said, I do think it's fair to say that a lot of this representation does seem to be centered on the experiences of autistic people who are able to speak. So with that, Elizabeth, I'd like to welcome you back into this convo to ask you, how do you feel about the way non-speaking autism is represented in the media? Do you think there's enough positive or accurate representation to begin with?
If my text-to-speech program had a laugh feature, I would be playing it now. Representation of non-speakers with autism in the media is near zero. If we are included in a story, our purpose is to be an object of sympathy because our lives without communication are terrible. I call it being locked in a silent cage. What you do see represented are quirky geniuses that can speak, like the Good Doctor. We certainly do have quirky geniuses in the non-speaking community, but apparently, it is too complicated to deal with our slow typing in the fast-paced media demands. We will figure that out so our stories can be told.
Do you think the media industry tends to group autistic experiences together as a monolith, rather than portraying different and unique experiences across the spectrum?
Yes, autism is a spectrum and very little attention is paid to the estimated 40% of individuals who are minimally verbal. The world has no idea about what it feels like to be a thinking person who cannot show it. Until now, it has been too difficult for the media to figure out how to tell our stories. With books like Spellbound and I Am in Here, and movies like Spellers, we are finally changing the way the world understands non-speaking autism and starting to teach non-speaking children how to spell and type in school. Only with communication can we be educated and live productive lives.
Again, for anyone who is unfamiliar, you are also a part of the documentary called Spellers, the movie, which will be playing the trailer tonight. And it challenges the conventional understanding of non-speaking autism. So with that, we're going to play the trailer for everyone tonight.
There's never any doubt in my mind when someone walks into my room that they can and will spell for me, that they can and do want to learn. I'm going to teach you how to do something new, totally new, which may feel a little bit weird at first.
Autism can take you as a parent to a really dark place. The future is really, really scary.
We had no real, reliable form of communication. We had to just basically guess for 20 years.
I lost hope that I would ever be enough for them. Are all the parents fools? Are we trying to live wishful thinking? No. I mean, what's anybody going to gain by this?
There should be research, academic literature, focused strictly, specifically on this area to help promote it.
We should have all been presuming competence in our kids, and we should have been encouraging them, telling them we knew that they were in there. It's time to shift that whole paradigm.
There are 31 million non-speakers with autism in the world who are locked in a silent cage. My life will be dedicated to relieving them from suffering in silence and to giving them voices to choose their own way.
Should schools choose to really work with a student's strong suit, autistics will become tomorrow's innovators and leaders. The average autistic child can read and do math by age 4, but can show it? Imagine the difference we can make in the world if taught how we learn.
Oh, I get chills every time I watch it. It obviously it resonates so much. Also coming from the background where I am the sister of a non-speaker myself, so it resonates. And by the way, Elizabeth, Pat, congratulations to both of you and the rest of the Spellers team for winning 2 awards recently at the Phoenix Film Festival. And with that, Pat, we're going to turn it over to you. Talk a little bit more about Spellers. So can you tell us a little bit what inspired you to pursue this project in particular?
It's a pretty long story. I don't know if we have enough time, but I've known the Hanleys for a long time, and I knew Jamie when he was first diagnosed with autism. And so I've done some smaller documentaries or films with the Hanleys, and one was for Generation Rescue, and really it was just trying to do everything I could to learn more about autism. Ironically, my father passed in 2000. He was a Sony executive, and his memorial fund was we were donating monies to Surfers Healing Autism. And myself being a big surfer, I would take kids out surfing. So I had this big interest in autism, wondering what it was all about. And is there a way to help these kids, these families? Is there a way to fix it? What's going on with the world? And as time went on, realized more and more people around me were being diagnosed, or their children were being diagnosed with autism. And knowing the Hanleys, every couple of years, there was a check-in with JB, like, hey, how are things going? How's Jamie doing? How's the rest of the family? And out of nowhere, JB texted me and he said, hey man, do you have some time to jump on a call or a FaceTime? And I said, yeah, sure. What the heck, what's going on? And all of a sudden I'm on a FaceTime call with Jamie Spelling, and JB saying, hey, Jamie wants to make a movie. It wasn't so much JB wanting to make a movie. It was Jamie wants to make a movie and he wants you to make it. And that's how it happened. And, the one thing I did warn JB is it does take, and Jamie, that it does take some time to make a really good documentary. And, only took us 3 years. So here we are.
But those years paid off. I mean, again, with your awards, and I'm as more and more people are going to sit down and watch it, they're going to be blown away. Because I honestly think, the trailer obviously does a great job, but there's just so much to unpack with it. And we're very, very excited to watch it. And on that note, again, Pat, you're someone who's worked on countless projects. So how did this experience of working on Spellers stand out to you specifically?
Well, most of the projects I work on are commercials, network promos, and those are great. But this film itself, it's life-changing for a lot of people, or it is already and going to be. And I feel like my journey here on this earth is to make films that provoke thought and create change. And so it was an honor to meet Elizabeth and learn more about her journey in life and how hard it's been for her, along with the rest of the cast and the Spellers. And of course, some of the cast were new to spelling, and it was really just no words can really describe to be a part of that journey. And Judy, how you were talking about how it's really hard for them in the beginning because they've been silenced for so many years in the school system. To see them earn that trust with Dawn Marie and Dana that are in the film, and document that process. And there's so much, a lot of people say, well, like, show me the science, show me the research. And you don't really need that. You see it in the body language and the expression of the spellers as they become more confident and comfortable with their coach. I love that term better than letterboard practitioner, because really that's what it is. It's just coaching them along the way because they don't have the mobility to speak like how we speak. So it was a great pleasure to be a part of the experience. I don't really see it as making a documentary at all. I just feel like this incredible journey that I was able to take for the last 3 years. So, yeah.
And if you could elaborate a little bit on working with Elizabeth, what was the greatest takeaway or the greatest lesson that you learned from Elizabeth and the rest of the cast throughout Spellers?
Yeah, so Elizabeth, she's like our rock star in the film. So I think with Elizabeth, when Elizabeth agreed to be in the film, it was like the nail in the head, right? Like, like here we have somebody that has, taken on the world in a way for people to hear her message. And she fought the school system. She got her high school degree, and then she went to college and she got a college degree. And we didn't have anyone in our film, nor have I met anyone during the process of making the film at that time that had those accomplishments. And that's what really blew me away. And to learn about her journey and how her journey is a great message for all our other non-speakers, was really important to have that in the film, because it's really a great bookend to the actual documentary, because it really shows there's no stopping her, right? And how we've been so ignorant as a society to ignore our non-speakers, or anyone that looks different or act different. Like, who are we to define what normalcy is? What is normal? Like, there is no normal. We're all different and quirky and in different ways. And it's just, having her part of the film was truly an honor. And hopefully she saw that. I think she did. And Jeannie had like this great line in the film too, where towards the end, she's like, hey, I'm just holding the mic for her, and it's my time to step away. And that's really like the journey for a lot of our non-speakers is, everything in the autism world has been parent motivated, right? But then this part is where the parents actually get to step away from the non-speakers, and then the non-speakers take over.
Yeah, and Elizabeth, and thank you, Pat. And Elizabeth, same question for you. What was your experience like working on Spellers besides Pat?
Working with Pat on Spellers was fantastic. I probably watched 5 versions of the film as he was editing it. Each time I thought, this can't get any better, and he made it better. He just kept polishing the diamond. He had a beautiful vision for this film, and he was also incredibly open to feedback. For example, it was very important to me to get in my message, I am not special, and he showed me typing it in a background shot. I also asked if he could include some of my music, and he started my section off with my song, Silent Cage. Another example of Pat's generous spirit is that he offered to take my brother, Charles, who also has autism, surfing if he ever came to LA. My brother got that trip for his birthday present. Pat not only taught him how to surf, he got his cinematographer in the water, and the last visual in the film credits is Charles standing up on a surfboard for the first time. Finally, I asked Pat to please give families a place to go for information to help their non-speaker learn to type, and he ends the film with our Communication for All website. Pat, you are the best.
I think I see Pat wiping away his tears here in the corner. Elizabeth, got him.
Oh, yeah. That's why I can't do any public appearances, because I'll just cry the whole time. Yeah, that means a whole lot, Elizabeth. Love you guys. You guys are so incredible and deserve so much more. So,
yeah, and and again, Elizabeth, kind of echoing what Pat is saying here again. Just to reiterate, thank you so much again for joining, and sharing these thoughts with us and your insight into all of this. And again, another question for you here is, would you say that the experience of working on Spellers has inspired you to further pursue activism through different forms of media?
Absolutely. The Spellers movie and my valedictorian address going viral have shown me the incredible power of media. It has put our mission for communication equality onto a global stage. Last month, I was in London giving a keynote for Neurodiversity Celebration Week, and later this year, I will be in Bangalore to present at the India Inclusion Summit. My activism started more than a decade ago with the publication of the book, I Am In Here, and last year I released an album of activism songs also titled I Am In Here. We also use our website and all the forms of social media to reach families, educators, and policymakers. I believe in the power of all different media to move hearts and change minds.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And speaking of different media, we are very excited to also feature the students of Mouth to Hand, who have a book titled Spellbound, The Voices of the Silent. And it actually just released yesterday and is now available on Amazon. So their goal with the book is to show the world what spellers are capable of and the limitless creativity that resides within them. Judy, I can already see you beaming with pride. Can you walk us through that process of creating this book with your students?
Sure. I noticed very early on in working with students that not only do they have, for lack of a better word, normal language, they had advanced language. Nobody appreciated the beauty of language and communication more than them. And I started to think to myself, if I could just encourage that kind of creativity in them, which they remembered, bearing in mind that none of them ever had a chance in their lives to create, what would happen? It was like a dam burst. Suddenly I was being flooded with it's truly incredible poetry. We began to work with a professional songwriter to give students an opportunity to write songs. And next thing I know, they're asking if they could start writing short stories. And I'm just being flooded with incredible work. Now, I was an English major in college, and I constantly am joking with my parents saying, I finally am getting to use that Ivy League English degree that you paid for 35 years ago. I started to teach them. They're like sponges. Nobody loves learning more than them. Next thing I know, I'm teaching, the elements of poetry. I'm teaching them how to read, appreciate poetry, poetic devices. How do we analyze a poem? Then I'm having book clubs. Let's look at literature. Let's look at character development. So I'm teaching them anything I can think of teaching them. I joke around all the time and say my students are probably the only students in America who will sit down at a dinner table and say, I hear in this Baroque piece, I recognize that the basso continuo is being played by the harpsichord, that's wonderful alliteration you're using in that metaphor. So I just started to teach them. And when you're a born teacher, there's nothing more fun than teaching people who love to learn. And so I started to get swamped with this stuff. And I thought to myself, wouldn't it just be wonderful to put this together in a book, to show the world what they're capable of. We were so fortunate in that one of our families was friends with a wonderful, wonderful woman. We call her our book angel, named Fran Hauser, who happens to run a project called Bookbound. Fran became 6 months ago interested. She met some of our spellers, was enraptured, and helped us to put together this book. It's just beautiful. It's just a testament to the remarkable human beings that I get to work with every single day.
And based on, and I mean, obviously, don't spoil anything for us. We definitely all have to go ahead and read those poems and songs ourselves. But could you talk a little bit about the common themes that you've seen in your students' works?
Yeah, it's interesting actually, Yona, asking that question, because at the gala that we're having to sort of celebrate the students and the release of the book a week from Saturday, I was putting together a slide presentation because we're going to have a live concert. We have live singers who will be singing. I'll be reading some of the students' poetry, and I realized that they kind of fit into three very broad categories. There's the before poems. What was life like for me when I was trapped, as Elizabeth calls it, in the silent cage? Then there's the, I came to see this person. She told me that I would one day be able to talk. It was so hard. I had to be resilient. I had to find strength in myself. But there was such joy now in my life in knowing that this was going to happen for me someday. And then there's the after poems. This is what my life is now. I can learn. I have friends. I can laugh. I can create. I can do all of these things. I can have a future. I can't tell you how many students say to me, I love my life now. Now I'm going to start crying. Pat and me can both sit here and bluff. I love my life now. Two students just today said it. One father said to his son, what would your perfect day look like? And he said, I can't answer that, Dad, because I'm living it. And so broadly speaking, are the three big categories of poems. Of course, within that, there's tremendous variation. Many of my students have unbelievably wonderful senses of humor. So we have poems dedicated to everything from the glories of mayonnaise to one poem called The Bad Haircut. You just don't know what's ever going to come out. So there is a tremendous variety, but that is, I would say, the three big categories.
So, and again, it sounds like, I think you said it perfectly, this dam bursting forth where they have all this pent up creative energy that's finally being put to use. And, based on these interactions with them, in your opinion, in your words, how eager are your students to pursue careers now in film, publishing, music, etc., now that they're finally able to communicate and express themselves?
Very interested. I think for a lot of them, the idea that they can actually think about a future is so new that they're sort of stunned if I ever ask them that question. So I would say, again, there's certain things that they're interested in doing. I mean, the love of language, the love of being able to express themselves is very, very prevalent throughout the day and throughout their dreams. I, for the first time ever, had a student tell me this week he'd like to become a journalist. I have several students who have expressed the desire to become songwriters. I have multiple students who are interested in going to college and working in fields like everything from historical research. Again, trying to teach them anything I could think of to teach them. I tried to get them excited about things that excites me. That's the fun of teaching, right? That you're enjoying something together. So one example, I love the English King Richard III. Just find his story fascinating. I started to teach my students the different theories about whatever, about his life and that kind of thing. The next thing I know, two of them have decided that that's what they're going to do. They're going to become researchers to research, the true events surrounding the life and death of King Richard III. But so I have writing. My own son, Alex, we mentioned before, and I just wanted to, sort of bring it up. Elizabeth, by the way, is such a hero to so many students because exactly of what you said, Pat, that she was able to formulate a life and create something for herself and is now this really vocal voice. My son has known Elizabeth since they were both very little. And unfortunately for me, although I knew that Elizabeth could communicate in this way, I believed that she was an anomaly. And so her message, as a little aside, Yona, her message that, quote, I am not special. Well, obviously, I think she's very special, but that she's not special is important for people to hear. Okay, so it turned out that my son, like Elizabeth, was a highly intelligent, highly articulate young man. He did take the GED and passed with distinction here in New York and is supposed to be starting college in the fall. He chose to go into script and playwriting. So there's a tremendous desire to express themselves, in all different kinds of ways through print media, through music, creatively. Some of them just want to become poets. So I think we can expect, based upon just what's happened in the last 2 years, even since the book went to press, I have had several things that I'm pained to say didn't make it into the book, because it's just continuing. There's going to have to be a part 2. So I think that we can expect great things from this population, because I don't think that there's any population on the planet that loves language and expression and the connections that language give us more than people who realize what a gift it is.
Well, I'm sure I speak for lots of people when I say that, very eager to read that part 2. And I think stories like these, whether they're fictional or nonfiction, no matter the prose style, no matter what format of media these stories are taking space in, it's so important now that we spotlight these stories and we amplify these voices, because again, unfortunately, even though our intentions have been pure, what's happened is we have spoken over these voices. We've assumed things, when the reality is we need to be uplifting these voices. And these are individuals who are creative, who can advocate for themselves, who can share their own stories. So with that, Judy, panelists, everyone watching tonight, we have prepared a short video featuring the students of Mouth to Hand, and you'll get to see them spelling and responding to questions about what is it they'd like to do. So everything that Judy has kind of been talking about recently. Unfortunately, there's only so much we can show in this limited amount of time, but we do highly encourage everyone to please check out Spellbound whenever you can. You will not be disappointed. So with that, we will be playing the clip.
Okay, so what do you hope that people will take away from the book after reading it, Edison?
I am hoping that some people will change their views on non-speakers. I am intelligent and creative, and am capable of great things.
Do you have any kind of an aspirations to work in either film or literature or publishing? Y and E. Yes.
Yes. I want to write novels. And I want to rid the world of evil teachers. I have a dream that I really want to come true. I want to write a film script about my sister and me.
And I
want to write all different things. I hope to call myself a writer someday. I love poetry and novels. I also love songwriting.
So again, a very brief clip, unfortunately, but I think it just goes to show the passion. And again, Judy, what you were talking about, the passion, the desire, the drive that the individuals in this community have. And I think now, especially now that we're having these discussions, I think, there's no excuse anymore for us to talk over them. Now is their time to shine. And, it's so clear that they have so much to contribute to this world. And panels like these, as important as they are, they're just scratching the surface. We still have so much work to do, both in our day-to-day lives, our daily interactions, but also in the industry as a whole, which brings us to our last few questions. So we'll be kind of working our way around here. So Pat, starting with you, what steps do you think the film industry could be taking to be more inclusive of non-speaking creators? So whether it be through employment, internships, partnerships, etc.
I think it's just listening, right? That's where we start. We start listening, and we become more accepting as human beings. So yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of bigger corporations that have brought in, a community of autistics, whether if they're non-speaking or speaking, to be a part of those larger corporations, because they know how intelligent, especially the non-speakers are. because of their play of words, right? Because they've been silent so long, and like you said, Judy, just a sponge taking in so much information and wanting to learn. So, you know, whether if it is internships, you know, I really think like more films, you know, like listening to these stories. You know, Judy, you have so many writers. It sounds like, you know, I have some opportunities to make some more films here, but I think there needs to be more films that are told from the side of the non-speakers, and yeah, be more inclusive, whether if it's in film or any type of businesses. I mean, you know, they have so much to share, and I don't like to say they, right? Like we're all the same, right? So why shouldn't our non-speakers or autistics have the same opportunities that we have? Because I learned so much through the experience through making the film, and so did my team, that, you know, we look at the world in a different way now because of those 3 years we spent with the cast and crew and with the coaches. So more films, more TV shows, more social media, you know, getting on Twitter, you know, and just people more aware that the doctors and the scientists aren't going to help this revolution. It's going to be the parents and the people that realize, you know, that this is all real. It's not, you know, some weird voodoo hocus pocus, which, you know, the ABA therapists, or some ABA therapists, have put it off to be. One thing that was really interesting and super powerful in the documentary was talking to Elizabeth and Jeannie about the ADA and how long it took the ADA to actually be passed by the government, and then the fact that it's not being followed, right? You know, all forms of communication should be used in schools and institutions, and it's not being used, and that's wrong. So we're purposely silencing these incredibly intelligent people, and it's really sad to think of all the generations that we've silenced, you know, in the past. And yeah, so it's just like, be all inclusive in everything, you know. But the more stories we can tell in film and TV, you know, like a TV show with a speller, that would be amazing, right? It'd be super incredible. I mean, it just seems like, you know, there are those TV shows out there that, you know, have autistics in it, but I just don't really feel that they're portraying those autistics the way that they should be portrayed. So, yeah.
Right. And, you know, I think it's what Elizabeth was saying before, right? We need to spotlight more of that. We can't just be writing based off of stereotypes. There's no room and space for that. But yeah, Judy, on an educator's note, what can educators do to change their approach to teaching and communicating with non-speaking autistic students?
I think a lot of people have heard the catchphrase becoming more popular, presume competence. But I don't think a lot of people feel it in their hearts. I think that people will take it to a certain level and then stop because they can't get over their own innate prejudices of assuming that somebody who doesn't talk with their mouth must have a cognitive disability. I point out a lot of times to people that the word dumb means unable to speak with the mouth, but it came to be equated with meaning stupid. It doesn't mean stupid, it means unable to speak with the mouth. So there's this kind of innate prejudice that people have that if you don't speak with your mouth, you must be talking to somebody who is cognitively impaired. When Alex was hospitalized in January, he was 28 years old. I had a nurse come up to him and say, "Honey, I'm going to have to give you an ouchie." Now, I don't care if you think he's cognitively impaired. Who talks to a 28-year-old like that? I wouldn't talk to a kid any over the age of 2 like that. So this concept of presumed competence, people kind of hear it and they think it's kind of catchy, but they don't feel it in their hearts. And in their hearts, what they have to feel is that the person in front of me, as you just said, Pat, is exactly the same as I am, except for they happen to talk in a different way. And so I know that there is research that has been available since the 1950s or 60s that show that students will always live up to the highest expectation of their teacher. I expect my students to act like the young ladies and gentlemen that they are, to act like the brilliant human beings they are, and guess what they do? Okay, I don't expect them to act in any other way because that's not really who I see them as. I don't, people laugh at me sometimes and say, didn't you hear them verbally stimming? And I'm looking blankly. I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't hear it. I don't see it. It's unimportant. What is important is the incredible human being that I'm in front of, that this is a brilliant, wonderful person. I noticed that somebody in the comments asked the question of what have I learned from my students? And I thought about it during this entire presentation. And I thought that the answer would have to be something like, I dedicated the book on the front page to my students by saying that they make my world beautiful. Other people might look at them and think, wow, they're so weird. Look at those weird things they're doing. Look how they, they're waving their hands, they're making weird noises. All I see when I look at them, and Pat, I'm going to really join you in the tears department, I see the most beautiful people I've ever met in my life. That's what I've learned. That beauty has nothing to do with what is on the outside of a person. I tell them every single day that they are ethically, morally, and intellectually superior human beings. So as an educator, what can you do? You can give the person in front of you a chance to be who they are, and you can believe in them.
Judy, I keep saying well said, but truly, I think I speak for everyone when I say you and Pat, you guys are just crushing it, nailing it. And I'm so glad that, these students have you backing them up every step of the way, and cheering them on. And then finally, Elizabeth, last but certainly not least, we will be wrapping up this conversation with you. So first question, Elizabeth, do you think media can be used to make a positive impact on the way that non-speaking autistic people are seen, heard, and treated?
Media is critical to changing the way non-speakers with autism are understood. We need to dispel the myth that equates non-speaking with non-thinking. We are fully functioning human beings who can't control our bodies. Once the medical and educational systems fully understand our challenges as motor and not cognitive, we will have the opportunity to learn to type and be educated like everyone else. Blind students have Braille and deaf students have sign language. Now is the time for the world to embrace non-speakers who type to communicate. We are working with innovative public and private schools to start typing programs. Our goal is for every non-speaker to be seen and heard.
And what do you hope representation will look like down the road, Elizabeth?
Once we have universal access to communication and education, our stories can be told. We have the same hopes and dreams as everyone else. To have meaningful work, find love, and have a family.
So in your opinion, what are some unique skills that non-speaking autistic creatives bring to the table specifically?
Well, we choose our words very carefully because most of us type with one finger, so it is slow and tedious. That can make us decent writers. Hopefully, in a world of AI chatbots, there will still be the need for decent writers.
I think there definitely will be. And then last but not least, what should employers, collaborators, and consumers know?
Non-speakers who spell and type are the hardest working, most determined people you will ever meet. And with all the challenges we have overcome, you may be surprised to see our joy for life. That's what drives my mission. 31 million people suffer in silence. With communication and education, they could be happy, productive members of society. The media can help us in our mission to ensure all non-speakers with autism are freed from their silent cage.
Wow, Elizabeth, I mean, it's no one's surprise. Every word you say just rings with such authenticity and such vibrancy. And, again, thank you to both you and Pat and Judy for joining us tonight and really helping, to bring this matter to life and really help share these stories. We're now opening the floor, so if anyone has questions for our panelists, please feel free to drop them in our chat, and we will be fielding them. And we are also welcoming Kennedy here, who will be helping us field questions to panelists.
All right. I wanted to ask Pat, where can we see the film?
Good question. So the film right now is being released through private screenings, and on the spellers.com website, I believe you can find out that information, or email from the spellers.com website. So it's just spellers, believe it's spellersthemovie.com. And so there are private screenings that are happening all over. And then also too, you can go to Kinema. It's KINEMA.com, and you can basically watch it there. You just pay a certain fee, and then you can watch it in your home. So what we're doing is called a private screening. And I believe they started around earlier this week, I think the 21st, and the 30th, April 30th is like the big day that it's gonna, where anyone can access it on the Kinema website or watch it in the various locations that people are hosting screenings.
Awesome, thank you. This question is for Elizabeth. Someone wanted to know more about your assistive device. What apps do you use to communicate on it?
Elizabeth typed, I use I-mean. It's I-M-E-A-N on an iPad, and here uses a wireless keyboard.
Thank you. Judy, this is for you. Someone else wanted to know how many students you work with at a time.
We have somewhere on the range of currently about 50 students, but we're growing very rapidly. We have classes that I offer, which tend to be about 5 spellers at a time. So poetry classes and book clubs, songwriting clubs. We're going to be starting to teach math in the next couple of weeks, which is a big request because students want to be able to take their high school equivalency exams and things like that. And so we're going to keep those groups to about 5. I myself have a caseload personally of probably approximately 30 or 40 students. I work a lot.
Thank you. Someone mentioned that their nonverbal son wants to be a chemist, and she made the good point when we were talking about poetry that there's as many interests as there are non-speakers. I thought that was just great. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Kennedy.
And just a quick note, if you do go to the Kinema website, Spellers is on the front page, which is actually really cool. So Kinema is a website that hosts different independent films, documentaries, all sorts of type of films. And it's a great platform, and it's actually pretty exciting to see it on the front page. So,
and let me just tell anybody who's in the New York metropolitan area or within driving distance, we're going to have a wonderful event showing the film this coming Sunday. We do have tickets because we got an exceptionally large venue here in Westchester County in New York. And afterwards, we're going to have a panel of 4 of my students to answer questions. So we're really excited about it.
Awesome. So with that, I think unless we have any other last minute questions, I think our time here has come to an end. I don't want it to end. This has been a lovely discussion. So I hope everyone at home joins me in thanking our panelists yet again. Elizabeth, Judy, Pat, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us and to share a little bit more about these projects and the amazing impact that they're having on the world. With that, we will wish everyone a good night and hopefully see you soon at the next event. Take care, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.